Welcome to Father and Son. G'day, Tom.
Morning, Dad.
Very interesting. The polls have moved very much in favour of the Liberal Party in the last 10 days. I heard the two leading pollsters, the one who does the Age and the other one who does the Australian, being interviewed on the ABC yesterday. They said that clearly the two issues that have lost Gillard the lead well, the first one was when she went away from the ETS and said she's going to have the community assembly of 150 million people, which is absolute nonsense. That's lost her votes. And the second one's all the leaks last week coming out of the Labor Party. That was the second major reason. Looks like it's neck and neck, but if anything, I think Mr Abbott's ahead.
I think he is. The Community Assembly was a bizarre idea because what is Parliament if it's not representatives of the community up there in our nation's capital deciding things on our behalf? So why you'd have another one is beyond me. And secondly, the leaks. Now, there are two theories. One is that the leaks themselves are damaging. The other one is it was what was in the leaks, that Gillard wasn't supportive of a pension increase or a paid parental leave scheme. I'm not sure which it is. What is very interesting this morning, also on ABC Radio, now former Finance Minister Lindsay Tanner, who is both your and my local member of Parliament, at least
retiring.
Who is retiring. He was asked point blank by an interviewer, was he responsible for the leaks? And rather than saying, no, I'm not, he said, I'm not going to comment on that. Now, that may be standard practice, but I would have thought, if he wanted to really distance himself from the leaks, he would have just said, no, I'm not. Of course, the big issue with polls is that they reflect the national mood towards the two leaders and the two parties. And what, of course, is usually more important is the mood in the handful of seats that might change sides. The marginal seats. And there's a few in Queensland, a few in WA, some in New South Wales, possibly some in Victoria. These are, of course, the seats that determine elections. And I agree with you, it's getting probably too close to call at the moment. Abbott might have a lead, but it's possible that it's not in the areas where he needs it.
Well, I think they could turn in Queensland because they like their own up there. Mr Rudd's gone. And there's 8 seats, and I've talked to the head of the Federal Liberal Party. He reckons they'll win 5 of them there for sure. They're going to need more than that, I think, to win the election. We've been down in Tasmania last week for the Ron Barassi senior debate, talking to Will Hodgman and his father Michael. They reckon that the Liberals could win 2 seats down there, which now if they do that, then I think they'll win the election.
Well, of course, the growing realisation within the Labor Party that the election is there to be lost, not just one now, has of course caused a major rethink of tactics. And 2 things they want to do. First is the emergence of the so-called real Julia, which makes everybody question what was the old Julia.
Another change?
Well, it doesn't look to be a change in policy, but maybe a change in style. And the other thing is, of course, is they say they now want to go, or apparently going to go very hard personally on Tony Abbott, which is a development in politics I don't think many people are very comfortable with, focusing on the person. Of course, Julia Gillard gets as much as that about having red hair and being childless and unmarried, and being a Western Bulldog supporter doesn't help, of course.
No.
Of course, we don't know who Tony Abbott barracks for in the AFL.
No, you don't tell. You'd be mad to tell us.
He didn't look too good handballing at Essendon Football Club the other day. But look, it's entered an interesting time. There's also talk about another debate. Now,
the Liberals have said we're not going to debate again. Now, it's very interesting. The Liberals were the underdogs going into the election, and therefore they wanted 3 debates. Because if you're the underdog, you've got a better chance of picking up, some support.
Yeah.
Now, she only offered 1. Now, because she's going backwards, she wants another debate. And Abbott was right. He's not going to give her another debate.
Well, maybe he won't. The formal reason for rejecting the debate is that the proposed night next Sunday is the same night as the Liberal Party's official campaign launch. But just to show you how these sorts of things are being made up on the run, yesterday I interviewed Andrew Robb on radio here in Melbourne, and he was on with Bill Shorten on 3AW, and he and Bill Shorten go head to head. And I've got to say, if you thought the leaders debate, the first one was very had no action and wishy-washy. Well, you ought to hear Andrew Robb and Bill Shorten going at each other. It's quite interesting. But Andrew Robb...
What, is it a tough debate?
Oh, it's a tough debate. We just let them just go berserk at each other. Hammer and tongs.
So it's totally different to the debate
between the leaders. Yeah. But here's the thing. We asked Andrew Robb about the debate. And he said, oh, yes, we'd love another debate. And Bill Shorten said, no, we're not having another debate. So in 24 hours, that position has already changed. Don't be surprised if it changes again. The thing I'd be worried about is that the Labor Party have said if they have another debate, they want to devote the whole hour to economic issues. Well, if you thought the first debate wasn't very interesting, trust me, a whole hour with Tony Abbott and Julia Gillard reading out economic speeches would be one of the most mind-blowingly boring things you would ever see, and would probably turn people to voting Green or something like that.
They said this morning on the radio that one of the other reasons that Abbott won't debate again is because his schedule's set, he's got to get to all the marginal seats, and now everything's locked in. And that's, when I ran the elections here in Victoria for several years, both federal and state, you've got to lock your leaders in, because people, they set up luncheons and dinners and meetings, and they've got to meet the business community.
And there's a very limited amount of time. I mean,
very limited amount of time, and given there's so many marginal seats out there, I mean, he's got to spend a lot of time in Queensland, which he's doing, but he's got to come into Victoria and do a bit, and he's got to come into go to all the states, otherwise he'll lose support.
Yeah, look, again, I think it's a very lacklustre campaign on both sides. I'm hoping to see some policy developments in the next week or so, something major. One thing I did ask Andrew Robb about was the Coalition's attitude towards Telstra. And, they have confirmed that there won't be a government-paid-for national broadband network, but he did say that they would look to do something to enhance telecommunications with existing players, which of course means Telstra. So it's fairly safe to say that if the Coalition gets in, it's probably good news for Telstra. And it also means that's $43 billion of potential government investment in the NBN that won't have to be spent.
Well, they'll have to spend some.
They will have to spend some.
Less.
It won't be $43 billion, that's for sure.
I don't think you're going to see much policy. Malcolm Fraser taught me many years ago, if you're going to win an election, you've got to hammer the other side. Negative electioneering wins. So I think you'll see a lot of that, and he's getting much better at it now, Abbott. He's saying we're 100 million a day in borrowings, we're going to cut the deficit, we're not going to make all the mistakes that Labor made, and he's got it all down pat. And he'll keep sticking to them. Now, if they go the man only, then that's a worry. I think they've got to go government, go opposition policy.
They've got to go policies. It would look very bad for Tony Abbott to be seen to be going too hard on Julia Gillard, who is, of course, a woman. And it was interesting on Q&A on Monday night. It was an all-Queensland panel, and it was up in Queensland, seeing Barnaby Joyce and Craig Emerson going at each other. Interestingly, Peter Dutton, who was a Liberal representative, sort of didn't really attract much attention, but Barnaby Joyce really does. But he kept repeating that, Labor's running up your debt, it's $100 or $120 million a day, where's it all going to end? And as far as I could tell, it certainly seemed to go down well with the Queensland-based audience.
Yeah, which is good. There's a couple of areas where it would be good to see some policies. There's been nothing on water.
No.
The Murray-Darling. The other good thing that's happening is the Western Australian Premier, Barnett, he's coming over for a meeting of the 500 Club with Ted Bailey on the 12th of August. So that's going to be a great lunch for anybody who'd like to come. We'll be able to tell you how to get there.
He is, of course, the sole Liberal Premier in Australia at the moment.
In Western Australia, so that's going to be a good lunch. All right, I think that's just about it, Tom.
It is. This time next week, we'll only be 10 days away from the election, so there'll be a lot more to talk about then.
And I can assure you it's going to be an exciting day on polling day, and may the best team win, and may that be the Liberals.